Oh, you've seen them. As a filmmaker, you want to show two characters sharing a phone call at the same time. What do? It's easy. Just split the screen down the middle with a line in between. Boom. Split screen. There's other uses or examples in filmmaking that this can relate to, but here I'm mostly referring to the use of multiple spaces or subjects framed at once. This has literally been in film since the 1910s. Osamu Dezaki did not invent split screen, but goddamn did he run with it. It's most prominent starting in his work in 1979 onward, but when you start to notice how often he uses it, you can't unsee it. I find it almost masturbatory of Dezaki to storyboard these scenes in such a disjointed, flashy sort of way. Sometimes it feels like the split screens are calling attention to themselves, like he's very often not doing this out of a necessity to depict two subjects in the same frame. Never mind how many different and creative ways he finds to use split screen, but think about how to implement this with animation. Sometimes it's simply layering the section of the screen on top, but there's cases where Dezaki has them animate the scrolling of the shot onto the screen. I assume those are each individual cells that had to be painted. But once again, when you think about it, this is also a cost-saving technique. Sure, there may be more subjects to paint overall, but it's sectioned off into little pieces. If this were shot reverse shot, you'd have to paint both shots in their entirety, right? But it's all the more stylized for it, as well as saving time and money. I think it's self-evident what you'd use split screen for, but there's recurring reasons Dezaki used it. For one thing, again, what split screen is most often used for, it's to show the audience as much of the scene happening simultaneously. There's so much of Dezaki's artistic style that prioritizes conveying to the audience everything going on in a clear and engrossing manner. This also includes a little bit of montage, where Dezaki shows redundant shots in a quick, repetitive fashion. In fact, calling attention to this redundancy by showing it to you side by side. And speaking of side by side, there's several instances of Dezaki just duplicating the same shot and displaying them in a grid. Why does he do that? My guess is similar to his use of triple take. Perhaps he's multiplying the shot in question to call attention to its significance. Like, oh shit, you seeing this right now? It's for exaggeration, which is a trait I don't think many uses of split screen can share. Notice in shots like these, choices one has to make when animating each of these frames. You have the option of A, looping the animation so you can keep it moving as long as you want. B, pan the shot in every which way instead of animating it, so you can have the illusion of motion without being dictated by the duration of the animation. Or C, play the animation and freeze it until the next shot comes. Dezaki uses all three of these, and it keeps this practice from growing stale or predictable. I don't have as much to say with this one since a lot of it really speaks for itself, but I want to reflect on what watching Dezaki's anime must have meant to the industry back in the day, and to the people that grew up with it who are now in the business themselves. It does help that nearly all of Dezaki's major works are great stories with great characters, through almost no contribution of his own, but the framing of these characters and the visual storytelling on display pushes everything that much further. Dezaki places these stories in the best framing possible, and I think that's what a lot of the most talented people in the industry strive for too.